last 1 hour. The Israeli Defense Forces have confirmed that all the UAVs were intercepted by the Israeli Air Force and the Navy. So Israel and Iran are exchanging fresh attacks, and Israeli Defense Forces have confirmed that all UAVs that were launched by Iran were intercepted by the Israeli Air Force and Navy. And remember, this happened after the Israeli Defense Forces claimed a lot of strikes were carried out on the headquarters of the Iranian Defense Ministry and also the nuclear project. The targets included the Iranian Ministry of Defense headquarters and also a nuclear project. All right, we have Mr. Brahmchalani, a strategic affairs expert, joining us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Republic TV. Sir, we'd like to know from you, is the Israel's second round of strikes likely to put Iran on the edge further? Or will these strikes succeed to bring the Iranians back to the negotiating table, like what Americans have been wanting?
Well, you have to go by what the Israeli Prime Minister's National Security Advisor has said publicly in a television interview. He said that it is not possible to destroy Iran's nuclear program by kinetic means, that is, by military means. He said the only way to dismantle Iran's nuclear program is through diplomacy. If President Trump can negotiate a nuclear deal under which Iran voluntarily agrees to dismantle its nuclear program. Therefore, what appears from Israel's offensive is actually not to destroy the nuclear program, but to bring about regime change in Iran. That appears to be the primary goal rather than destruction of Iran's nuclear program. But Iran has historically shown great resilience to bounce back. It waged war with Iraq for 10 years, and the Israeli public is already war-weary because Israel has been engaged in wars of different kind for the last couple of years. Any protracted conflict with Iran is going to bring sustained pressure from the Israeli public to end that war. And I think it's easy to start a war, as Israel has done, but very difficult to control its outcome, or very difficult for Israel now to bring it to an end in a way that Israel can show that it has won decisively.
Right. And sir, we'd like to also know from you, because Iran says that Israel has also targeted its oil supplies as well as the piped natural gas fields as well. Considering that, this obviously will have an impact on the global energy supplies as well, should India be also worried?
Not just India, the world should be worried, because once you start escalating attacks, you go from military targets to energy facilities, you're basically taking the conflict in a direction that can actually boomerang on you, because Israel is a small country, it's vulnerable, it has nuclear facilities, it has energy facilities, and even though the US is now defending Israel with all its might, US military is using air, ground, and naval means to defend Israel from Iranian reprisals. Yet, as we saw last year, and we have seen again in the last couple of days, that Iranian missiles, some of them, have been able to penetrate Israel's anti-missile defenses, and they've also been able to penetrate America's anti-missile defenses that are now protecting Israel. So when you escalate the conflict to civilian targets and to energy targets, you're taking the conflict in a very dangerous direction.
Right, and but also Iran has also, of course, struck back in retaliation. It has sent barrage of missiles on Tel Aviv. The question remains: will that also deter Israel, considering the fact that the operation is to take care of Iran's nuclear supplies? But the question is, can Israel do it all on its own?
Israel is getting immense help from the US. Without US help, Israel is in no position to wage a sustained war with Iran. But you have to remember how Israel began its military offensive. It began a military offensive by first targeting Iran's air defenses and ballistic missile launchers. That created a safe corridor for Israeli warplanes to strike targets inside Iran. This is the opposite of what India did during Operation Sindoor. India began by targeting terrorist camps in Pakistan. It only began targeting Pakistani air defenses and Pakistani air bases after India lost some warplanes, as India's Chief of Defense Staff has acknowledged. He's called it a tactical mistake that got corrected after the initial oversight. But in air warfare, the first principle is that you try to take out your enemy's air defenses. Now, this is exactly what Israel did in firing the first salvos, and this is exactly what India did not do with Operation Sindoor. So India can learn from how Israel is carrying out these attacks, though India and Pakistan, and even India and China, when they have waged war, have never targeted civilian and energy infrastructure of the other side. They have, kept their war, their conflict restricted to military targets, and I think that's the way war should be waged. If you enlarge it, like Israel has done, to energy targets, that creates the potential of a boomerang effect that could be quite devastating for Israel, given that this is a country that geographically has a narrow waistline, and any kind of major explosions that release toxic fumes, whether from energy plants or other chemical facilities, would greatly affect the Israeli civilian population.
Right, Mr. Brahmachalani, you stay with us, so we'll just come back to you. We have more breaking news right now. We are getting more videos of Israel's striking Iran. Israeli defense forces have struck Tehran on key infrastructure and fuel tankers. IDF has hit Iranian Defense Ministry headquarters and also another nuclear project sites as well. And in a statement, Israeli Defense Forces said that they have completed an extensive series of intelligence-based strikes on a number of targets in Tehran related to Iranian regime's nuclear weapons project. And as per Israel, 195 Israelis have been injured in the missile attack launched by Iran. All right, let's take a perspective again from Mr. Brahmachalani. Sir, now since the nuclear talks are off and both sides are vowing for more action, is there any let-off that we can expect, or are we just seeing a regional war unfold really in front of our eyes in real time?
The danger is that this particular conflict could drag on. It could become a protracted war, a war of attrition that will be quite damaging for both sides. But you have to keep in mind the background to Israel's strikes against Iran. Israel has a long history of bombing nuclear sites or suspected nuclear sites in other regional countries. Israel's strategy is to remain the sole nuclear weapons state in the Middle East. It wants to enjoy nuclear monopoly in the Middle East. This strategy is known as the Begin Doctrine. It's named after the then Prime Minister Menachem Begin, who carried out the 1981 bombing of Iraq's Osirak nuclear reactor. Osirak reactor was a reactor that the French government had helped build, and it was a civilian nuclear reactor, but Israel argued that this reactor would produce weapons-grade plutonium, and it carried out this bombing which destroyed Osirak reactor. This was in 1981. And then in 2007, years later, Israel bombed a suspected Syrian nuclear reactor. This reactor was under construction. And again, this was a civilian reactor. And yet, Israel argued that this reactor could produce weapons-grade plutonium. So this strike happened in 2007. Only 11 years later, Israel confirmed the strike in 2018. And now comes Israel's strikes on Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Iran's nuclear infrastructure is pretty spread out. There are a number of sites in Iran that are nuclear sites. And in fact, some of Iran's uranium enrichment is happening underground, in underground facilities, in underground installations. The question is to what extent Israel will be able to destroy Iran's nuclear infrastructure. And as the Prime Minister's NSA, the Israeli Prime Minister's NSA admitted on television that military means alone will not suffice to destroy Iran's nuclear program.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and sharing your the perspectives on that big story that we are tracking. And we have more updates on that big story.